Hey guys, if you've been listening so far, you guys would know that I am a cop at this point. For those that are new to our podcast, welcome. As you heard, I am a law enforcement officer of 6 years. I just wanted to let you guys know that anything I say is my opinion and mine only. It does not reflect my current department's opinion or law enforcement as a whole. Thank you.
Hello and welcome back to the Secret Society of Man podcast. I just want to start off by telling a story that happened recently. I may have told you this in one of our B-Dubs outings, but it ends in a question, but this is what originally made me wonder about this topic. So a couple weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago now, I was getting home from the gym, and on my way home, Christy called me. She said that she was out with our daughter, and she wanted to go out to lunch. And so I came home, took a shower. I was sitting on the couch waiting for her to come home, and she called me and she said, "Hey, I'm home." But as we pulled up to park, there was a shady guy with his pants down to his ankles, and he was walking around in front of our house on the sidewalk. So I just kept driving around the block, and I'll park when I see him leave. As soon as she says that, I hear the front gate latch start to open. Someone's walking into my yard. And I said, "Okay, well, I'll call you back in a minute." And I look out the window, and there's this tall, lanky guy, definitely looked out of it. Like, you look into his eyes, and you can't see anything behind his eyes. And he had, like, stuff around his mouth. Like, I don't know if it was drool or if he was inflicted with rabies. I'm not sure. And he was opening the gate with one hand, and in the other hand, he had a bottle of Mad Dog 2020. And he's walking up to my front porch. Now, I was a little bit scared, but at least if there was going to be somebody that's breaking into my house, I was glad that it was this guy, because he looked like I could take him, like if it came down to it, I could handle him. Like, he was barely able to walk straight, and one of his hands was occupied, so I felt pretty good about my chances. I went to my knife cabinet, trying to figure out what's the best combat tool here, and I grabbed the chef's knife, and that's not really good for a knife fight. It's a little bit too unwieldy, so I settled on a steak knife, and I positioned myself behind my door, so that way when he opens the door, I'll be behind it. And then he walks in and he doesn't see anybody. He's like, "Oh, great, this house is empty." Bah! And I'll get him, right?
Slash him.
Yeah, before he even knows what happens. Right. And then I'm waiting there, and I think, well, he should be in here by now. I didn't hear any, like, jiggling of the door or anything like that. And I look out the window, and he's walking away, and he's going over to the neighbor's house. But thinking back on it, in that moment when I was lying in wait, ready to ambush him, I was really thinking, like, a lot of people, they're against the idea of people having guns in their house for self-defense. Those people are sick in the head, because I would have loved to have a gun so I could stand on the other side of the room, de-escalate the situation, but instead I was there ready to stab this person to death if it came down to it. That's far more gruesome than handling it with a gun, right? If I had to do something like that. And I guess my question for you is, if I'm looking to get a gun for self-defense, it's like, what's a family-friendly gun, a gun that's good for the whole family, if you're trying to find a good starter gun?
If there is such a thing, right? So when it comes to houses, you want to stray away from any long guns. So shotgun, rifle, stuff like that. The reason for that is because there's too many corners. It's too short. They're going to see your barrel before you see them, so they're going to know where you're coming from, stuff like that. And I would say the best go-to is a handgun, right? Now, I'm a little biased because, again, of my profession being a cop. I'm a little biased towards the Glocks, right? So when I'm working, I carry Glock 17. It's just your basic 9mm. It's a little bigger, though. I would probably recommend like a Glock 19, which is smaller in stature, much more fitting. Even I prefer the Glock 19. Sig Sauer is another one that's pretty common.
I think I shot that at the range.
The Sig?
But you thought there was some safety issues with that, I think?
So I have heard in the past, I've never had an issue with Sig, but I have heard in the past of some misfire issues as far as the way, I don't know if it's the way the internal system works with the firing pin or what it may be. I don't know the internal workings of a SIG. I don't. But from what I've heard horror stories of that going off in holsters or in pockets, or if, obviously if they're not properly kept, it's possible it could go off, which I don't recommend doing.
I may not even be able to afford a holster, so I might just do the old waistband.
Yeah, I mean, that's
and
something.
I think that might be extra dangerous with a SIG, so I'll probably avoid that.
Yeah, so a couple things to note with the Glock. There is internal safeties, like I said. One of the main ones is on the Glock in the trigger itself, that it has to have a certain pound of pressure from your finger to go off. So that's why you can drop it on the floor. It's pretty safe. Obviously, again, I don't recommend these things, right? Let's not go out and run it over with a tire and test and see if it goes off, right?
Leave that to
But
Mythbusters.
for the most part, I've never heard of a major incident of a misfire with Glocks.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, thinking again about Christy, I've talked to her about this. I think especially after that scenario, she was a little bit more receptive. I feel like a lot of times women are the ones that they don't feel comfortable having a gun in the house. They can't really see themselves doing that. Again, they don't want to have a gun in the house, but they'll have a metal baseball bat under their bed, right? Ready to bludgeon somebody to death, right?
That's very aggressive.
Right, it's worse than the knife thing. But I think they just don't think about that part of it.
Right.
So when it comes to trying to get her familiar with it, I've heard that a lot of women get, I think, is it 22s? That's the smallest caliber.
Yeah.
But then a lot of people say that that's not even worth your time. They make it seem like it wouldn't even hurt to get shot by a 22. And I just feel like that can't be the case.
Sure. So yeah, if you're kind of leaning more towards the 22, I hear a lot of people say that too. And the reality is for rifles, right? So for law enforcement rifles, the ARs that we carry in our squads, those are just 223 rounds. So they're minimally bigger than a 22, a 22 caliber. There's rarely any difference.
Yeah.
The end of the day, a bullet can kill somebody. You run into issues of, are they on drugs, right? What other issues are they not feeling stuff?
Might be more resistant.
Correct.
Shake it
a
off.
22, if they're on drugs, might feel some pain, pinches or something. But I mean, 22s are more likely to ricochet off bones and stuff like that when it hits a rib or something else. 9mm obviously a little bigger, 40 cal, 45, whatever you want to do. But I would highly suggest the 9mm. If it's home defense, any type of handgun is really going to be fine.
So was your wife always receptive to guns, or is that something you had to train her?
Yeah, I wouldn't say train her, but get her more comfortable with them. I mean, she didn't even want to see the Glock box downstairs where in its case, right? She doesn't want to, at the time she didn't want to see it when we first started dating. Now she don't care that it's right on my head. She doesn't.
Drills in the middle.
Yeah, no.
You wake her up with the alarm.
Get down. Yeah.
Positions.
Smoke and burn something in the house. No. I don't do any of that. But I had a buddy of mine, very similar story, where his mom was very much against guns. Okay. About 4 years ago, there was some rioting going on, and his mom wanted a gun to protect herself in case someone broke in the house. So he reaches out to me. She's like, how can she get a gun tomorrow? I'm like, she can't. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It takes time to process. It's not something, right? I'm not talking about private party here. So for those that are listening that are like, well, I can go get one from my uncle tomorrow. I'm sure you could.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about actually going through the steps. You have to go through an FBI checklist, all that stuff. So same thing, same kind of thing. When you needed it, and you didn't think about it, and now when the time comes, you're like, wow, I should actually take a look into this, Never know.
Thanks for the input, but
of course.
You want to get started with our first story?
Yeah, so Austin, Texas, recently, apparently they've been catching bodies out of there, floating down this lake or river. I can't remember. It was either a lake or river, right near Austin. Austin, the city is in the background of this photo.
Yeah.
And the citizens are convinced that there is a serial killer. out there, because in the last 2 years there have been 12 bodies. And I will say even from where we currently live, that's not really a normal thing, right? Like if I started finding 12 bodies in a lake in 2 years, that's a problem. Like something's happening here, right? Further reading the story though, it sounds like the police looked into it more. There was one person who, out of the 12, there was only one that was suspicious, and they ended up arresting a person off of that one person that was suspicious death at the time.
Yeah, and it was a murder, right? That one at least.
It was deemed a homicide. Yeah. Yep, it was deemed he did not die of natural causes or anything like that. So with that being said, the other 11 were deemed either a drowning or some type of other natural event that caused them to die.
Like you said, 12 people found in a body of water is very abnormal, and so I can see how that would be suspicious. That's almost too many to be a coincidence of any sort.
Right.
Now, one of them only was a murder, but I looked into the area, and this is Austin, Texas, and you were confused about whether it was a lake or a river because it is called a lake, but it's one of those like man-made canals like the LA
Correct.
River.
Yes.
Because there's no natural bodies of water in the area, right?
Correct.
So this is the only body of water in the area. And so even if they were all murders, I think it does make sense just for that reason because, if you are going to commit a murder down there, you don't really have a lot of options for where you're going to dump your body, right? And so they're all going to go into that one place, and you hope it just goes downstream, right? We live in Minnesota, but we're called the land of 10,000 lakes. So, like, if you commit a murder here, you have almost too many options, I would say.
Yeah, more than 10,000, actually.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And if you ask 10 fishermen, you're going to get 10 different answers on where's the best place to dump a body, right? So there's a lot more options. So if you were to find 12 bodies in a lake here, well, that would be highly suspicious. But down there, they only have the one lake to choose from. When's the last time you heard about an active serial killer in the country?
Yeah, it's been a while. You talk about back in the 70s, 80s, and even early 90s. I mean, you're looking at huge names, right? Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, all those guys. It was super weird. It was like everyone was a serial killer at that time. But it's interesting. The last time I heard of one somewhat recently his name is Anthony Soule. He was in Cleveland, I believe, Cleveland, Ohio. And he murdered between 15 and 20 girls, somewhere around there. And what he would do was he would take them in. Most of them are prostitutes. Take them in, typically drug them or get them intoxicated, have sex with them, and then kill them after the fact. There's actually a really good Vice documentary that people can watch on him. It's kind of ironic because the smell from his house was so bad because he left the bodies in the house that people thought it was the meat market literally right next door. Like there was something wrong with the ventilation system or something. So the owner ended up moving and the smell didn't go away. Well, what ended up sparking it was a woman woke up one day in the middle of the night at his house. She went to the bathroom. She saw in a side room that there was a headless woman's body.
Oh, my God.
Now, instead of panicking, because she knows what this guy may be able to do.
Because he's just a creep or something? Like, she had
correct.
a suspicion?
Yeah. She ended up getting into an altercation with him. She ended up jumping out the second window naked and running down the street. And the cops finally did something then. But it makes you wonder, right? If, let's say, he's 16 bodies in and at least 8 of them, because there were some buried in the yard, at least 8 of them are in the house. As a human being, if you smell something rotting in a house, are you going in there? Because I ain't.
No.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not going in this guy's house. Be like, bro, what is that smell?
Yeah.
What? Like, I don't know if you've seen the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary. Same thing happened.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, it's the same sort of story.
The thing opened, his door opened. They're like, what is that smell? Even his neighbor all the time was like, where's that smell coming from?
Yeah. He's just like, I just left some ham in the fridge.
Yeah. The family brought a pack of meat to the.
Yeah.
To the. I
mean, he's like, okay, cool. Like, even if I didn't think anything was wrong, I would say, okay, well, let's go hang out somewhere else because I can't stand
Correct.
this.
Yeah, let's go to a restaurant
Yeah.
or something like so. Yeah, that's what I got to say on that.
Well, I saw a Ted Bundy documentary, and I think they identified one of the main reasons why there's not a lot of serial killers right now is because that Ted Bundy thing really exposed a hole in the police system because they were not interconnected, and that dude would just jump from state to state over in the West, and because police departments didn't like check with each other and they didn't have any sort of database interconnecting them, then every single one was like a brand new case with nothing connecting it because they were in completely different areas. After that, well, now like you can see, I'm assuming, right? You can see if there's similar crimes anywhere else, or like your DNA that you find or any evidence, you can link that to crimes probably anywhere in the country, and that just wasn't possible back then. That, and then I guess not to mention all the cameras that are around now. I mean, people have cameras on their houses.
Yeah.
So it's got to be significantly harder to be able to get away with 4 murders in a row to actually qualify as a serial killer. Probably going to get caught far sooner than that.
Yeah, you're right about the system thing. It's called NCIC. Every single state has that system, so it can be shared throughout all 50 states. So anything that's ran, if they have an outstanding warrant out of state, there's people that I'll deal with that actually have warrants, but the warrant says within a certain radius from the state, right? So recently I dealt with somebody who had a Louisianian warrant, and it only said surrounding states only. So as long as they don't go pretty much anywhere south of Tennessee, they don't have to worry about getting picked up.
Yeah.
So that happens all the time.
And then we had one more news story to cover too.
Yeah, so Wally the gator.
Yeah.
So when I saw this, I was like, there's no way that a gator can be a support animal.
Yeah.
Every time I think of one, I think of either dog, maybe a cat, maybe. But I feel like you need to be, and maybe I was getting mixed up with an actual service dog.
Yeah.
Compared to what they call an ESA, emotional support animal.
Right.
That's completely different.
Yeah, service animals, and people would assume that they're the same. And just having the label of emotional support animal makes it seem like there's some standard to that. But we learn in real estate that literally there's no training or anything involved with a emotional support animal.
Correct.
Like you would think that I think at least they should have a qualification where you need to be able to put a vest on it, you know?
Yes.
But you can have an emotional support snake, right? Like if you have like a vest on a golden retriever, that's a support animal, like that does something, you know, that adds some level of officiality to it. Like before the vest, it's just a dog. But when you put a vest on it, that's now a medical professional. You know, but with the emotional support animals, there isn't that. Like you can say any of your animals is an emotional support animal, and that's relevant to real estate because that's actually a huge loophole to if you're trying to find a rental or something like that. That a lot of rentals don't want animals, but if you say it's an emotional support animal, then the landlord literally cannot ask any questions about it. They just have to take your word for it, and they have to let you have that pet in the house.
So it could be an ostrich.
Yeah, anything you want.
You're like, sweet.
Yep. And they can't ask for proof or a doctor's note or anything like that. They just got to be like, oh, yep, and just accept it. So like, that's a big loophole. I don't know how many people exploit it. There's people that think that that's a major issue. That there's millions of people in the country that are exploiting that and getting, you know, ruining landlords' properties. But I don't think it's that big of an issue. But that is the case. So if you ever see an emotional support animal, literally it's just an animal, and they're calling it that. I think where the issue lies here is that it's going to nursing homes. The guy brings it to nursing homes, and that just seems like a recipe for disaster. But the guy that made Cocaine Bear, his next movie needs to be Nursing Home Alligator.
Wally the alligator killer or something like that.
That is like a B movie, horror movie waiting to happen.
Sharknado.
Nursing Home Alligator, dude. That's the next one.
It's funny you say that. I remember a long time ago, back before I was a cop, I dealt with animals quite a bit. in the same field. And I remember we always dealt with dog bites, right? Every time in the summer you deal with dog bites, happens all the time. People out walking their dogs. Some dogs are more aggressive than others, whatever. It was late at night. I get a call for an animal bite. Now, I thought that was strange because almost every single time they dispatch you, they tell you it's a dog bite. So when I saw animal bite, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I look at the comments on the initial call for service, and it said someone's monkey bit my kid.
Oh, my God.
So I, lean back in my chair, and I'm like, there is no way that an actual monkey bit somebody's kid. So I call the complainant, and they're like, yep. My kid was out selling something. I think he was part of a sports team, selling those cards that you get for $20 towards a fundraiser or whatever. And she's like, the monkey was out on a van in the driveway and just jumped on him and bit him in the head.
Oh, my God. And
I said, what type of monkey is he? And they're like, well, I think it's a lemur or something, kind of more of the skinny, smaller type monkey.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about gorilla.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if there's a silverback, we got some other issues. She tells me the address. I get over to the address, knock on the door. I'm not kidding. Woman opens the door, and it's a split-level house.
I thought the monkey would open the door.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be like Dunstan Check In. You ever seen that movie with the orangutan? So she opens the door. It's split level. I look above her head. You can see the kitchen with the refrigerator. The thing is in a cage on top of the refrigerator. And I look at her and I said, do you have any idea why I might be here right now? She said, yeah, I heard about the incident with my pet monkey. And I said, okay, we have some serious issues here, some serious issues. At this time, the complainant had sent me photos of the injuries. Weren't terrible. I mean, just little puncture wounds. They didn't have to go to the hospital or anything.
But just like I said before, if I got bit by a monkey, I'd be
Diseases.
like, what does this guy have? What kind of Ebola did this guy
Correct.
bring over? Yeah.
So here's what happened. I told the woman, I said, here's the deal. I'm going to have to look into this and do a bunch of paperwork on it. And more people will get a hold of you tomorrow because tomorrow was my off day. So I went back. I literally did a 7-page report, just long, very detailed. Turns out that day, the next day, I wake up. I work overnight, so don't call me lazy people. Woke up at 11 a.m. and on my phone was a email from a supervisor at the time saying, hey, we read through this. Just wanted to give you an update. We did a search warrant on the house to take the monkey, and they're putting it down, and then they're going to test it for rabies. And so they didn't have rabies. Kid was fine. They just did antibiotics and called it a day. But that was by far the craziest thing I've dealt with as far as an exotic animal being in somebody's house, let alone Wally the gator.
Yeah. It's kind of a sad ending to that story. Do you think that just from one bite, the monkey thing is kind of wild, but if it's
Sure.
a dog, right? Do you think just one bite, because you can have it where kids get completely mutilated by pit bulls. That's one thing, right? But you can also have it where someone, a kid, gets a solid bite from a dog that's otherwise well behaved. Sometimes kids, they don't handle animals right, but then the parent of the kid wants to put that dog down, and I think a lot of times that's the result of it, when that dog probably doesn't need to be put down. What do you think about situations like that when dogs are put down just for one incident?
Yeah, so, I mean, ultimately the discretion is up to the owner of the dog, right? A lot of that is civil problems, stuff you see on Judge Judy, stuff like that. There's a process to it. Most of the time, the first process is called potentially dangerous. So there was some type of incident, whether it's a little bite on the hand, maybe took a little chunk out of the arm, something to where medically something had to be done to this person that got bit by your dog, okay? They're labeled as potentially dangerous. Think of it like probation. So they say, okay, your probation for your dog. If something happens again, then they're going to be labeled as dangerous, and then they fee you, I believe it's at least once a year, for having a dangerous dog in the city. If something happens after that, we take the dog. So there's no like ands, if, or buts third time. Now, most of the time that I've heard people put their dog down after a first incident was it more or less had to do with a lawsuit on the other end. So I don't know if it's one of those other lawyers says, hey, if you take care of the issue, whether you get rid of it or put it down or whatever it may be, that's going to help your case
That makes sense.
in the civil courts and say, I took care of the issue, won't ever happen again. Might appeal to the judge a little more to take, instead of $500,000, you have to pay them $200,000. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, that's refreshing. I definitely thought it was less lenient than that. But I guess monkeys, they don't get the same treatments.
Right,
I mean, you can't even have a monkey anyway, right?
No, it's completely... In my report, in that lengthy report, I listed the whole policy of what animals are allowed in the city I work for, and that definitely was not one of them.
Yeah.
In fact, that was like an excluding animal that can never like live there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yes. Yep.
I think some places are more lenient with the exotic animals. Like, I kind of like the idea of that. Like, I kind of like the idea of someone having a monkey, but a lot of times you see people will have like a tiger cage in the back, wherever that's allowed. That's obviously extreme. It always ends up eating the owner, right? Classic
Always.
story. But I think that the average person probably wouldn't go for like tigers, I think that there should be room in our society for like you go to your friend's house and you walk into his house and you see like a fuzzy animal sitting on his lap and you're like, dude, what is that? He's like, oh, it's a coati-mundi. I brought it in from Brazil. I got it through the guards. I had to pay somebody off. You're like, oh, that's sweet, dude. Like, let me pet it,
Yeah.
Like, I think that's cool.
By the way, for those that are cat people over dog people, okay, just remember this. If you die in your house and police still have yet to find you because there haven't been flies on the window, the grass hasn't been growing yet, or mail's not building up, cats are way more likely to eat you faster than dogs. So just letting you know, your little furry companion that has an attitude all the time will eat you when you die.
They give you so much joy in life. I think
Do cats give you joy?
Well, the people that have them, they'd say so. And I think that, if you have a pet, whatever kind of pet it is, whether it's a dog or a cat, like, they give you so much joy throughout your life. It only makes sense that you would give back to them in the end by nourishing them for a couple more days, allowing them to survive until they can be rehomed after your body is found. You know, like, I live on through my dog in that way if he eats me.
And then when they get picked up and go live with someone else, they're still shitting you out in the new owner's house.
Yeah.
And then it repeats. Then they die, they eat, and then they just keep passing along.
Yeah, get reintroduced. Like, there's a lot of creative ways that people have right now, alternatives to being buried, like more eco-friendly things. Some people get cremated, but some people, there's like services out there that will turn you into a tree. And that's kind of the same thing. Yeah, like you can be turned in, I don't know if they turn you into fertilizer or I don't know what the exact process is, but you can be returned to the ecosystem. And that probably costs some money, but if you just let your dog do that for free, it'll be gruesome, but you're not going to care.
I guess, yeah, you ain't going to feel nothing. So back on Wally the gator.
Yeah.
So this guy has owned Wally for quite some time. Well, he ended up taking a vacation to Georgia, the state of Georgia in the U.S., and all of a sudden he wakes up the next day, Wally's gone. A pair of people took him, I believe it was teenagers or younger adults, took him to scare somebody, put him in a backyard. He ended up going in a swampy area, and they still have yet to find Wally the gator. He's likely dead or just will never be found again.
Hey, you think so? I mean, isn't that probably where he belongs, is in a swamp? Or
well, remember, he's domesticated.
Oh, okay.
So, and he's pretty small. He's probably 2.5 feet, 3 feet long. And when you got gators that are huge down there, that's easy food. Not to mention, in the article, he had spoken to a county animal control officer down there, and they said it's going to be almost impossible to find him, whether alive or dead, just because of the circumstances.
Yeah.
So
that's too bad.
It is too bad. I mean, what a horrible... It's just horrible.
Yeah, you don't steal someone's gator, man. And the way he described them, he said he was taken by some jerks. That was his quote.
Yeah.
This dude, what's his name?
I don't remember his name. I don't remember.
Very good-natured, that guy.
Very
he probably could have
good-natured.
said a lot worse thing, but
very good-natured.
taken by some jerks.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line is I looked into that emotional support animal, and I wrote down the animals. There's about 16 on the list that I saw. I won't read all of them, but it literally goes to hamsters, guinea pigs, birds, chickens, hedgehogs, rats, mice, mini horses, ponies, ferrets, llamas, you name it, alpacas. I mean, can you honestly bring a llama to your apartment and say, this is him? You ride in on him, he's got the long neck, he spits in your face. You know, he's just rude as shit, spits in your face, you know?
I don't know, man. I mean, that's a good question. I think I read in that article that he was certified as an animal, so there might be some species that automatically get a pass, but some that do need some kind of like certification.
Sure.
But honestly, dude, like half of those things, I don't even know what kind of emotional support they can provide. Like, you know, you have a rat, like I don't even think rats have emotions themselves, let alone can comfort you with your emotions. Like,
Correct.
I've seen videos of service dogs for like people that are either like autistic or they just have like breakdowns during the day. And so the dog's job is to like comfort them. They know when it's coming on and they know what to do to comfort this person. And like the dogs can sense your emotions in a way, you know. They have that part of their brain that allows them to like connect with you on that level. Most of those things you just listed do not have that ability. Like a bird doesn't know what you're thinking.
No.
He doesn't know sadness.
That's what I'm saying. Like most of those are prey animals.
Yeah.
So they
just know fear.
Yeah. Dude, all they're worried about is, am I surviving the next day?
That's, I think, what makes people think it's bullshit is when you see emotional support parakeets.
Mm-hmm.
What are you getting out of that? I mean, that just seems like BS.
If anyone wants to add in the comments under this video, and you have an animal in mind or you know of one that was a support animal, please put it in there. We'd love to see it and maybe touch on it at a later time. Because, I mean, there's this Wally the gator, first of all, rip. Okay, gator's gone. All right, there's no doubt in my mind that dude is in another gator's stomach right now as we speak.
It's the worst tragedy
rip.
since Harambe.
I mean, that's horrible. Have you seen that video?
Harambe back in the day?
Oh man, dude.
I
They
still
shot him, dude.
Yeah.
He's like
But you still see memes of it, so I mean, he has a legacy.
Harambe. So, but seriously, if any of you guys want to put in the comments any emotional support animal, we'd love to read it and love to hear your opinion on it. So, all right. So, what do you think about the national anthem, just as a whole? Do you want to start out like that? Like, what do you think about the national anthem as a whole? Do you think it's still strong? Do you think we should still do it? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's not a banger.
It's not a banger.
A lot of times, I think that there should just be one version of it that they play on the speakers, and it's the same every time. Every once in a while, you get a story about someone that just completely messed it up. But honestly, man, I think that half the time they just sound bad anyways. Even if it's not like something that is being ridiculed as bad, like a lot of times it doesn't sound good. They're trying too hard because they want to be renowned for this singing this song. Like, this was the best rendition of the anthem anyone's ever done. So they do these voice inflections and they really try to hit that last note. You know, the home of the free note, that's the big one, dude. If you mess that one up, if you're off pitch on home of the free,
it's over, bro.
Then you're going to be a meme for sure. So this lady, did you know who this person was?
Zero clue.
Okay.
Dude, I saw her name and I'm like, is that an actress?
Do you have it written down?
I believe it's Ingrid Andress.
Okay.
Something like that.
Something like that. She came to do the national anthem and it really wasn't that great. Somehow people found out that she was drunk when she was singing the national anthem.
Maybe she was so hammered, she had so much liquid courage in her that she's like, I'm going to destroy this song.
Yeah.
And in a good way, though, not a bad way.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe she went up there and she's like, I got this. I'm composed, you know, even though she had glossy eyes. I mean, it looked like she had that 1,000-yard stare on her. So I was disappointed in the fact of like, hey, if you can barely stand, tell your manager, hey, I'm drunk. Tell them I'm sick, and I'm not singing because this is going to be. I mean, we were 2 notes away of her puking all over the field. I mean, it was murderous. So I was just disappointed. I wasn't really upset about it, but
well, I think that is kind of like her character in a way. Like I don't know anything about this lady.
yeah,
I've never heard of her, but just the way she looked, and maybe it's because she was drunk, but something about the way she looked made her, she kind of had like a Kesha vibe to me. Remember Kesha back in the day, where like I feel like, I could be wrong because I don't know it, but I feel like her thing is like she just shows up places and her manager's like, what are you doing? You're on in 2 minutes. And she's just like, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Like, I had a crazy night last night. Like, that seems like that might be who she is. And probably people expected that. It's par for the course for her.
Yeah.
I think that just might be her thing. Like,
maybe. And at the end of the day, so she put herself in rehab after that, a treatment facility. So if that tells you anything, now I don't know if that's to help with the blowback, right? Where it's like, I'm going to get ahead of this. So I'm going to put myself in treatment.
Yeah, PR move for sure.
100%.
But I don't know if you caught this, but the quote was, I'll let you know how rehab is. I hear it's super fun. So I think whatever rehab she's checking into doesn't exactly run a tight ship.
Yeah, that or she's just trying to be cynical. I don't know. But I understand where you're coming from as far as like the vibe with her, kind of like loosey-goosey, just wing it. We're just going in there and we're just hey, a couple shots here and there, we call it a day. At the end of the day, she makes a ton of money, and she made decisions, and that's the way it went.
Well, this was a huge. So so about the rehab, like I think that when celebrities go to rehab, I don't think it's quite the same as like when somebody else goes to rehab. I think there's rehab facilities for celebrities that charge a huge premium because they know they cater to celebrities, solely exists as a PR hideaway. There was a show called Celebrity Rehab, and I'd never seen it, but I can only assume that it being a reality show, they were just having sex, sneaking drugs in, and I think that, honestly, I think even in regular rehab facilities, people banging is a huge problem. I think the number one thing that people that work in rehab have to do is try to stop people from hooking up there, because I saw it described one time as you go there and you have a God-sized hole in your heart and you try to fill it with ungodly things. That's one way to put it.
Where'd you hear that from?
I don't know, some article.
Wow, that's
I think that's somebody involved with.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're very like religious forward in those rehab facilities. They try to like get people on the religious path and find God and have that fulfill them instead of the drugs. But so that's how they put it, the people that are into that. But that's a huge thing. But I think this lady is just going to go there for a week to hide out. She can say she went to rehab. Justin Timberlake's probably there right now, so she's probably going to hook up with him. And I think it's going to be a win. The whole situation was a win because if you look up her name right now, every article is about how her Spotify streams skyrocketed after that. So right now, man, people just like disasters. And so if you're a B-list celebrity and you get hired to go do the national anthem, I think one of the best things you can do is just prepare to either show up high or drunk or let a nip slip and make those headlines. And I think that's going to help you out a lot. People don't really care that she was drunk. No one's offended by that.
No.
But now her name is in the news, and she made probably a ton of money on those streams, and now I know her name.
Yeah, I had no
so
idea.
That's a huge win for her. So we're probably going to see a lot more of her. Congratulations to that lady for having such a profitable performance of the national anthem. Because if you go there and you just do all right and you just kind of do a solid job at the anthem, no one cares about that.
Right.
That's not going to do anything for your career.
Right.
You got to be willing to make those headlines.
And I'll preface too, like, as we know, alcohol problems are a real thing. And, like if people have issues, we absolutely support anyone out there that's willing to go get help or needs help. Absolutely go and do that. That doesn't, we're not ripping it on it in that way, shape or form. We just hope that she's sincere about her trying to get help. And unfortunately, like you said, that quote doesn't really seem like
She's
the best
not.
quote
Why would
to
she
go.
be serious about that? why would
they go into it?
Everybody's done embarrassing
Sounds
things
fun.
under the influence, dude. Like,
Sure.
I mean, it would be equally as embarrassing to go and do a bad karaoke. You don't
Sure.
stop drinking because of that. Like, people have done really embarrassing things, and I mean, some people are legitimately a problem, you know, and
Oh, yeah.
but just because you do something embarrassing doesn't mean you gotta stop drinking, dude. She's not gonna change anything. I don't think anybody really cares, and we don't need to have our hearts go out to this lady. I mean,
Right.
I think this is just a big joke, dude. It worked out great for her. She's
Yeah.
not gonna stop drinking. What's the point of becoming famous if you're not allowed to have drug problems? I mean, the whole point of that, like, is so you don't have to work a job that's going to drug test you, and you can't show up drunk to your office job. So you risk it all, and you go and try to be a famous singer. That's literally the whole point of all of this. I think she should just, sort of double down.
Okay,
And
fair
so
enough.
I think if you're in the music industry, I think that there's some room to be showing up to gigs drunk and things like that. And I think it worked for her. She made a lot of money off of it, so
Fair enough.
can't knock her, dude.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I hear you. I hear you. All right. Well, I think that really ties up our episode for today, unless you have anything else to add.
No, I don't think so. I think that's it. So again, if you made it this far into the video, then thank you for watching. Please subscribe and share with everybody. We're gonna have some good clips coming out. We post clips every single day on YouTube and TikTok, and then the full episodes every Tuesday. Anything else?
That's it. We appreciate you guys subscribing to us, and the views are important to us. Just keep supporting us, and we promise we will keep continuing to bring more and more interesting things down the road. So thank you.
All right. See you next week.